Today we got Max Vollmer on. Max, you're probably like, I tell everyone I have a friend in Germany, but I actually don't even know where you're from in Germany because they ask me the next question is like, oh, what part? I'm like, I don't even know. So where are you from, Max?
I'm from the Black Forest in Germany.
Yeah, the Black Forest ham.
Yeah, that's probably most people know. Black Forest ham, water.
Black Forest ham.
So it's close to Switzerland. Super suburban country kind of environment. A lot of
The Lake Constance.
Even more like the Swiss Alps, like really green mountains. That's kind of like where I grew up. But yeah, I'm less of a German because obviously I've been in the United States for a while. I haven't been back in a long time, so maybe you should tell somebody that was born in Germany but is not in Germany anymore.
Yeah.
No more.
Yeah, I met a guy from Germany actually this weekend. So on the hike, I can't remember what city he lived in, but he's a commercial pilot and he flies like Salt Lake City, and he trained in Arizona actually for a little bit, but super cool, dude. You guys have similar accents, so he must be from somewhere kind of close. But
yeah, every
that's
German.
Cool.
That would be that he's from Germany, man.
I mean, hey, I don't know. There's a southern accent in the States, and there's northeastern ones.
Well, there's definitely accents, right, Max? But at the same time, Chandler doesn't know the difference between them. You ain't gonna know the difference between the accents, Chandler.
You never know. You never know.
But anyway, Max, tell us about your business, man. Tell us what you do. Give us a brief background of what you did do. How'd you start out in real estate, even?
Yeah, so I guess our story is pretty similar. We're all the same age, right? I'm only 24. We pretty much started real estate while being in school. Now, obviously, I was born in Germany, as you already talked about. I came here as a student athlete. I was a professional track and field athlete for Nike, so I competed and lived in Oregon and competed for Germany. Pretty much when COVID hit, because when you come as a student athlete or any kind of athlete into the United States, you're not supposed to get any job. Some specific visa that basically is not allowing you to get money from any other profession than you just being an athlete or you just being a student, which was fine. But then when COVID hit, I was pretty much running out of money. I was getting married while basically doing coronavirus. I met my wife my first year while going to University of Oregon, and so she was also a student. She's the same age than I am, and so she was working as a server while we both went to school. Oregon was really strict when COVID hit, so Oregon was shutting down. So she had absolutely no money coming in from serving. I wasn't even allowed to work at this point in time. So long story short, we pretty much were running out of money. At some point, we had $76 in the bank, and the only way for us to actually make money was building an LLC and being an entrepreneur, because the visa was not preventing me of doing that. So I was like, okay, that's literally the only way for me to do something. And real estate was always something I was passionate about, but I was never really making the step to get really into it. I was reading up on it, watching videos, all those funny things, and never really took action to actually accomplish something in real estate until I was already pushed to the wall and forced to do something because we had to survive. So I was like, fuck it, let's start our real estate business. So worst thing that happens is we lose over $76 in the bank. So we started it in January 7th of 2020. So we started our business, and so just my wife and I grinding, pretty much doing everything from A to Z. So when we initially started, we started in a niche market, as you guys have, got to know us earlier when we met the first time, basically flipping land. So we started flipping land nationwide, because when we initially started real estate, as most of the people that listen to the podcast know, COVID was a crazy time. Housing was really short. It was super competitive. So for us, you looked at it from the outside, you're like, I don't want to fight up with all those other guys. Well, land is also something that you can do where less people are actually looking to acquire and disposition it. So we came into this niche market and pretty much the same thing in selling homes. So you virtually flipped land like you guys do the virtual wholesaling. We did the same thing for land, which I believe is easier than houses because you have no inspection. I mean, land is just land. You don't have tenants, termites, toilets, whatever. So you just have the land. And we dispositioned that stuff to other wholesalers, to investors. We novated those stuff on the MLS and to the end buyers. And so we got started there, pretty much did that while being in school. And I would say this year, at the beginning of the year, we kind of pivoted away from just doing land. So we started doing some wholesaling on the housing side as well. We started working on some construction projects with the land that we had under contract. So kind of expanding our expanding our business model in a way. I guess the number one issue we always had to scale and doing those kind of new development projects was always having access to funds, right? So when we met at one of those collective geniuses events, I was always asking, help on how to raise private capital, having access to more funds to scale a business. So we really early realized, okay, we need to have access to more funds to kind of go to the next step and really build something out that we wanted, where we wanted to move that business to, just away from typical wholesaling, more into like buying properties, holding properties, building assets. And pretty much then May, when the market turned and we had a bunch of our wholesale deals just fall out of escrow left and right because interest rates going up, people couldn't afford the new construction anymore. So we had a lot of just properties left and right pop out. And it was like the awakening for us. I was like, wholesale is fun. You get quick capital there. It's easily accessible for people to join, but also it's volatile in a way, right? So at this point in time, we realized, okay, we need to change our business operation. Like we need to go more into being able to actually take those deals down, add value. So we basically utilized, obviously, my background being from Europe and started raising money in Europe. Because with everything happening, with interest rates, the euro is losing value. A lot of investors are actually super motivated bringing that money back into the United States. So we started raising money overseas and quickly raised the $5 million. So we partnered up with somebody in Italy that is doing the whole client relationship. He also was in real estate, but he was obviously doing it from Italy. So he didn't have the local acquisition. So we commingled our experience in the acquisition, disposition, processes, and his experience just raising capital and on the construction side, and merged our two businesses together. And long story short, today we have a staff of 35 in-house employees here in Tampa. So we moved from Oregon to Tampa. Tampa is now our local market. Between 3 offices, we have an in-house construction team, 2 acquisition departments, a brokerage, in-house attorneys, in-house bookkeepers, in-house title agents, everything, right? So we're pretty much all in-house. At this point in time, we don't do much wholesales anymore. We still do it because it's a quick cash kind of asset, but we do a lot of fix and flip turnkeys, buying multifamily, converting stuff into rentals. So we're trying to keep more assets than we give away. We still have the wholesale business alive. Maybe still maintain it, but I'm not really interested in scaling it. We're scaling more the new construction side of things. We're scaling the multifamily acquisition right now. Because we have access to funds that allows us to leverage them at this point in time. So basically, long story short, we started wholesaling and really worked our way in a sufficient real estate business that does pretty much everything from single family wholesales to new construction to multifamily.
Yeah, that's a big one right there. So I'm just curious too. I know we talked a little bit about it, but how'd you get a hold of raising money? Where did you start to raise money in Europe? How did you even think of starting? I mean, obviously you thought about it. We know why, but where did you go to start doing it?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was obviously, as you guys know, you guys have raised money, right? In the United States, there's a certain expectation of people, interest rates they understand the local market. And obviously for me, with my background I knew that people overseas don't know anything than we know, because real estate in Europe and Germany and Italy is so much different than it is here. Those properties are not cash flowing. You cannot assign things. The way we can do real estate, we could do it nowhere else. So the United States is in a way like a golden nugget. And then it was just putting one together, right? I mean, we're in a world recession. We're entering a world recession. The euro is losing value. There's so many components that are pushing people. The stock market is starting to collapse. It was right around when the stock market started collapsing. Crypto was going down. So all the other assets that people put their money in are now really volatile. So, smart investors are still looking for opportunities. And I was like, you know what? If we go overseas, we might not have this competition that we have here, and we can actually get stuff at different rates. Mm-hmm. So that was the initial idea we had. And as you guys know, you have an idea, you put it out there, and you need to find a solution. So it was pretty much just going back and forth, networking people, talking to people overseas, talking to people here, and kind of knowing somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody, right? I mean, you guys presented it a while ago. It's who, not how. So we're okay, we don't know how to do it, but maybe we know somebody who can help us. We started networking, and then we got connected to a guy who knew a bunch of rich people overseas that wanted to put it into the United States. And this is when it started, right? We talked to them. There was a lot of syndication there. And then we opened up this relationship. We started doing the first couple of deals. It worked out and expanded. And this is pretty much how it started. And It's still pretty new because yes, it is not necessarily easy on the marketing side doing it overseas than it is like locally, because you have to almost have a local team, manage the relationships, speak the language, do all the local marketing. So we have that in place currently in Italy specifically, and we're working on with some smaller hedge funds in Brazil and in Mexico right now. They want to bring their money into the United States. So they have like $15 to $20 million each they want to bring in. So this was also connections. We talked to people, the new people overseas. So it's all happening. Networking is key, right?
Nice.
So like, are these companies like in those other countries? They just get all this, they have all this money because that's what they do, is they go and raise money from local people, promise them a return, and then are they like, and then you're just syndicating like a portfolio with them, and then just paying them out as partners. Is that kind of like what they're doing? They're just trying to get access to the real estate market in the States.
Yes, so those hedge funds, it's going to be a little bit different. We haven't really worked with those hedge funds yet. It's really like a relationship that is about to be built. We have worked with like, attorneys, doctors, like people with access to funds overseas that like to invest, but not necessarily real estate investors. Mm-hmm. How we structured it there, it was really deal dependent, right? So we had certain deals where people got no interest, but they got equity, or we had certain, people that just it wasn't really like a fund structure. It was like a people-to-people structure, because we didn't really know how to bring the fund together. So we had some people that, like, Max, I give you $100,000. I actually don't care what you guys do. Give me 12% return annually. I'm happy. But we had those guys that like, I have $500,000 available, but I want to put it towards a property and I want to get 50%, right? Or I want to do a turnkey with you guys. I give you the money to buy it, fix it up, put a tenant in there, and then we refinance it out. So it was really deal by deal dependent, which made it complicated, because sometimes you have to like syndicate between, like, somebody's getting interest, somebody else is getting equity, because everyone had their own relationship. Mm-hmm. So now we're pivoting away from that, of like bringing it into like a fund structure where everyone gets a certain percentage of return. And this is how we do it. There's no other way. So this makes it easier for us. But at the beginning, I guess if you want to build a trust, you have to almost follow what they tell you to do, because like you want to build a relationship. We use the testimonies to build more private lending relationships. So when we started, it was like all over the place. We had deals with somebody got equity, somebody else got interest, and blah, blah, blah. So it was kind of complicated, but we made it work. And now we're trying to like structure this a little bit more feasible into a fund structure.
Like it. So what's the fund? What is the, not the name, but what is the return that they're looking for? Like, what's something that ideally they're looking for? Is it like 7%? Is that what you're giving?
Honestly, mind blowing, but some of those people are fine with 3%, right? And this is where just like the different cultures come in place, because in the US, yes, 3% you would get nobody. But in certain countries, that is actually like feasible on their investment, right? Based on inflation rates and those kind of things. So we had a mix between 3 and 7%. And obviously when the news hit and inflation in the United States, but also in Europe, went up to like 8%, like the highest inflation in the last 40 years. We got a lot of calls from people like, hey, Max, like inflation is 8%. I can't take 5% anymore, right? And then we got a lot of pushback. So this is where we're trying to restructure to give everyone like a fixed 10 to 12%. And then everyone is going to be better than inflation. And it's more like a passive kind of investment, for at least for the single family cycling. Because what we do, basically, we use the money, we do a fix and flip, we refinance them out. So we just like cycle, $3, $4, $5 million, cycle them on a monthly, because like a reconstruction fix and flip takes us like a month to 2. So we just cycle the money. Now, if you go into multifamily, then it's like a syndication kind of deal. So now you set up an LLC, you bring them as LP. So maybe they want equity, maybe they just want passive interest. So then it's really deal dependent again. But for the single family flips, we usually try to have it like a fund structure. We just cycle through the entire time.
Got it. So like you said, right now, like you said, you're just going to make it a flat 10%.
Yep.
Right. Is that what you said? Got it. Makes sense. So flat 10%, and then they fund it. So you're only paying them when you're using the money, or you're just paying them at all times?
Right now, we're only paying him if you use the money. I guess this is what we're going to change. We're going to pay him like at all times, like just a
10%.
passive return, 10%. Mm-hmm. I got to get outside here. It's kind of cold in the house, but let's just change locations really quick. But yeah, this is how we're trying to restructure things. And it seems to be really feasible, because a lot of people like the idea of just like the passive, okay, it's a guaranteed. After a year, they can take their money out, or they can just keep it in for more, interest. So far, so good. Yeah.
Interesting. And so what do you, so I mean, obviously you got to keep that money going. So you're just trying to buy as many deals as possible then, because at 10%, you know, it's not that expensive, but at the same time, if you got 5 million out and 10% in that portfolio, you know, what is that, 50K a month?
Yeah, so this is a really good point, right? But we had to like restructure our acquisition because, as you perfectly said, right, it's getting expensive. So you have to have a certain deal flow to make it work. So we really heavily started acquiring with the acquisition. I think we added 8 people in the last 2 weeks because we need like more deals than we can handle to actually make sense of that. So this kind of goes back to like just having a really strong acquisition team, bringing in those deals to make it work, because you have to recycle it. And this comes up, you know, and then the other challenge is now you have the in-house construction, because like using the subcontractors usually is not as efficient. So they just start bringing in like an in-house construction team, which we have 6 people right now. Now we need to have to even expand that, because in order for us to make it a break even, we almost have to hit like 10 deals a month on a fix and flip side to make it like a real great return. I mean, I think five is where we have to break even. 10 is like a great return. So like you have to scale certain points of the business to make it work. Then you can really cycle it. So this is why we've like started to acquire and hire a bunch of people in the last couple of weeks, setting up the fund on the same side. So when both things are aligned, we can just go and, you know, start basically doing it on a higher scale.
Gotcha. So talk about like, what is the construction demands as you start to scale out? Because like, I mean, like, what was your the big learning experiences you've had as you start to add construction to the tool belt?
Construction, yeah. I mean, for me, it was a lot of learning, because I don't even know how to fix a light bulb. I'm like construction that painted myself. I mean, even IKEA stuff is too much for me. So that was like a huge thing for me. I literally had no idea where to start. So at least the other guy of the business partner we joined with, he had a lot of excessive construction experience because he's done some of the flips in the past. So at least like he knew like the lingo, and he also knew some people. So this is kind of like how he brought like a huge asset to this partnership, because he understood it, whereas I was more the numbers, process, KPI, acquisition guy, right? So he really had a huge component that he added to that business. And as you guys know, like strategic partnerships is usually like where the money is being made, because I would have only scaled to sort of a certain point without somebody else helping me actually to fill in the missing pieces. But obviously, like we're still in the process of making it efficient, because it's really brand new. But we lost some money on some deals because we over budget or we under budget, right? So like learning to really do like an efficient budgeting is one of the things that you really have to take into consideration, and also building out almost templates. Like if you just consistently like fix and flip like most turnkey people do, you want to have almost like the same outlet all the time. So you just like pre-order a bunch of material up front, and not every project is different. Like you just do the same basic things, and then it almost looks always the same, but it makes it really cost efficient. So those things we had to build, and we're still building how to make that process more efficient. But yeah, I mean, there's still a lot of learning into it. I'm not saying we're good in the construction piece yet. We're okay, but we definitely need to get better.
Got it. I like that.
Yeah. So you also talked about, you guys are doing some multifamily stuff. Talk a little bit about that.
Honestly, I mean, it was always a goal. I would say we almost stumbled into the multifamily by accident. We did some realtor reach outs just for like single family acquisition. And some of the realtors, obviously, you don't know if they're commercial or residential when you just initially reach out. So we talked to some commercial realtors, and they didn't have like a single family stuff for us, but they called us back and say, "Hey, I have this multifamily. You guys also buy multifamily?" And we're like, "Sure, send us the numbers, send us the P&L and the rental rate, and we'll underwrite it and see what we can make work with it." It is kind of like how it started. So the first project was pretty much like a distressed property that we bought a couple months ago. The owner was distressed, but was about to basically lose the property. So it was like a high motivational component for them to like let go of the property. So we underwrote it, and it was at 50-something% occupancy rate. So it was definitely poorly managed. It was a 41 unit. So he was actually managing the property himself, which is so motivated of getting rid of it. So there was a lot of pain for him. He was like, guys, I'm losing, I don't know, $30,000 a month right now on just interest and all these things. Like, I really need to figure something out. And so we came in, we underwrote it. We basically understood how much equity was in there, and also the value add component. So we basically used the investor's cash, paid him up all the way. So we closed the cash. But we knew, and he also knew there was a lot of value, but he was not able to do it himself. So that was the first one we had, and it was a really good one because we came in, we just had to basically fix up the other half of the units, which was just minor rehab. So our construction team came up there, they started renovating them, and while one unit was done, we started advertising it. So now we had 85% occupancy rate, and right now we have $1.2 million in equity. It's just from value add from what we bought it for. Right, so give it another month or so. We're gonna cash out, refinance that stuff, and put it into another unit. But that was pretty much like an eye-opening component for us because a lot of people have the impression that multifamily is like the next level kind of thing, which in some way it is. But the other way, personally, I can tell you guys, it was easier to manage that 41 units than managing like 3 fix and flips in like the same county, right? Because there's something different. You also drive back and forth. So like it was so smooth, like just managing that we realized, hey, like let's come actually up with an idea of bringing in a department that only focuses on the multifamily acquisitional side, which we're working on right now. So then we started like going actively looking for deals. We got a 68 unit working on right now in Oklahoma, and by the end of like next year, the KPI is adding 500 doors to our portfolio. So we're gonna hire basically one acquisition specialist. I think that's enough for just multifamily. And then we're going to work like a little bit of a different fund strategy on like bringing in like some of the bigger money because those guys want to invest more in multifamily space versus the single family. So lining this one up and then lining up some strategic partnerships in different states on the construction side so we can actually do some of the rehab if it's not necessary in Florida.
Nice.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So what marketing are they doing? Just to realtors or brokers for the multifamily?
I guess like marketing is, relationship based. You're calling commercial brokers, going on LoopNet, see who had listed something, calling them for off-market listing, putting our word out there. We do some direct mailing to, target lists that we pull, which isn't not as efficient as it is with single-family residential because, you always got to think those guys that have them most of the time are investors, so they kind of know how business works. Exactly. Word of mouth, right? The acquisition is a lot less leads coming in, right? You're not gonna have 100 leads. Like you might have 2 leads on a month, and then you have to underwrite them for like 2 hours, 4 hours. So it's definitely different. I guess what we focus on right now is really like the research component because we're building up the department. So we're researching, what is actually the right area to invest in, right? So looking at migration movements, job growth, opportunities. Like there's one in Georgia, for example, where Amazon just bought a shit ton of land and they're building this huge facility, but it's like outside of one of the major cities down there. It's like 100 miles away from Atlanta. So there's going to be no infrastructure for all these employees, right? So if you pick up land or something like that, so you can actually do new construction. They're like looking for like certain areas that actually have really value add, but also the market is in a cash flowing market. So usually the Midwest area is a lot better than Florida. It's not necessarily a cash flowing market. Most multifamily is extremely expensive down here. So you're looking for those strategic markets, and then you really put yourself in that market, right? You talk to people, you get your word out there, and it's really just a referral, making sure people know you're serious, calling realtors, and making you feel like if they call you back, you actually know what you're doing. So it's really about that, building that trust and making them feel like you actually like not just some wholesaler. You close, they want to see proof of funds, this kind of thing. So it's all relationship based, I would say. It's the 90% of multifamily comes from relationships.
Yeah, I agree.
Yep, it's all like that. So what are some of the big things you guys are doing moving forward? Obviously, is it moving into multifamily more? Is there anything outside of that you guys are working on? That's kind of like exciting for you.
We're definitely adding the multifamily to the business, right? It's going to be more like a long-term play because like if we add it, it's not necessarily like overnight cash flow. Like with 35 employees, a lot of overhead, there's a lot of salary payments. A multifamily doesn't like pay for it. So we still have to do a lot of the fix and flip and wholesale just to get through like the next 2, maybe 3 years until some of those first multifamilies, cash out, refi, and then more of the cash flow comes into the business. But like slowly adding some of those things into our portfolio, I think it's gonna be a strategic movement next couple of years. So it's like a 5-year outlook that we have in a multifamily department and how we want to build it out. And on the wholesale business, we just pretty much want to keep it stable in a way that funds the entire business versus like scaling it up, just keeping it really sustainable and going more into the asset building, asset management space. So we actually start to, especially right now, if the market is declining, there's going to be a major opportunity like for long-term appreciation and long-term wealth. So we're going to, better than like taking those nice deals, selling it to somebody, we try to figure out how to keep them, right? So creative financing is a big one that, opened my eyes a couple weeks ago, where I was like, we can actually take so much more deals that we basically throw away if we buy them creatively in a long-term appreciation game. So this kind of like where I'm seeing things, because at some point I want to stop the grind and the wholesale grind and be more on the passive income, just having a lot of cash flow passively, do a lot of refinance over time and get the cash back into the business. That's probably like a longer play, and is a less of a hustle. This is sort of like where we're kind of moving in that direction. But as I know that we still have to continue to wholesale and do some of the fix and flips just to pay for the day-to-day, and keep the business running.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
100%.
I like it. What how has it been merging with someone new? How has that process been?
Well, I guess I could ask the question to you guys. To be honest, you guys inspired me, right, to do that, because when I first met you, you guys are not related to each other. You guys knew each other from school and you started a business, and you guys have been a crazy wholesale business, have been super successful. So when we saw you on the first time, and I clearly could see the syndication between you guys, because you guys are not the same. You guys have different assets, different skill sets, but it commingles so well because Gino does certain things on the sales side, you just the whole IT operational side, and it really commingles well. And this is what I believe allows you guys to scale, because you guys are both on an equal level, equal pace, building the business. And I realized that. So obviously Kate and I are married, we're really close to each other. There's not much confrontation and we have ideas. So we started the business together, and she's still involved in the business, and without her we wouldn't be here. But on like just scaling it to the next level, having like level 10 meetings and stuff like that, and be like pretty much just two bodies but one brain, only gets you so far. So for us, it was like we got to bring somebody in who's confronting our ideas, who has a whole different background and different skill sets to really get to the next level. So I realized that I was just looking for some strategic partnership, which is not easy to find, because as you guys know, it has to be more the human where it connects versus the skill set, because you got to make sure this guy is not taking over the table in a year or something like that. So
Exactly.
the stuff is really the important thing about it. But I think it was a relief, because it took a lot of just the pressure away, because now you have somebody else that you can rely on that does something else, right? As for you guys, Chandler, you do some of the operational stuff, so Gino doesn't have to worry at night if the KPI structures in place, those things. It's the same for me. Like when we started everything, it was just so much. Now I can really focus on the things that I know that I'm good at, and somebody else that is on the same level does the same, and together we can grow even more. So I believe in partnerships is probably the key thing to really scale your business to a real business. Is you need partners, you need strategic partnerships, else you only get so far.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect way to say it right there. Perfect way to say it. Get that who, not how, like we talked about in that presentation.
Exactly.
Yeah, because it's like I think Carlos and Sal said it at one point. It's like 1 + 1 should equal 3, not 2.
Yep.
So like when you have a good partner. So
exactly,
I like it.
Well, Max, we're wrapping up here. So I want you to think. What do you want to leave the listeners with? And what's one thing you want to leave the listeners with? A couple sentences on what you think would be the most value for them. I know you gave a lot of value out here today, but what's one thing that you would think, you would like to leave them with?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about a lot of high level stuff. I think, on the entry level side, what got us from where we started to where we are today is the whole networking piece. Networking is probably the most important thing. It's about who you know, not you're only as good as the people you know, like who knows how, like we have mentioned multiple times, right? I think that was the number one key that got us to where we are today. And it's a lot of the mindset thing, right? Because initially when we started real estate, before we even started, I had the mindset you need funds to even start real estate. I didn't even know wholesale existed, right? And maybe a year ago, I had this mindset, multifamily is like the next thing you have to have a fat business to get into, right? It's all mindset. So at the end of the day, once you network and you talk to people that do what you are trying to accomplish, and you realize they're just as smart as you are, they're anywhere gifted or whatever not, right? So they're just as you are. That opens your mindset, like, shit, if this guy can do it, I can do it too. And most people, especially here in the United States, it's like a really open culture, whereas overseas, it's not the same. But here, if you actually ask people and approach people, most of the time they share their wisdom, they share their knowledge, they share their processes. So I think that is really what helped us grow. And I think you guys have done the same thing, networking a lot, meeting the right people, taking them as role models, and then just looking also for partnerships. I think that was one of the things. You can only get as far when you're by yourself, trying to do everything yourself, grinding yourself, and not necessarily finding like a partner, like a CEO partner, but even partners like a different wholesaler, and you guys just help each other dispo leads or call each other's leads and split the profit. Like there's partnerships in so many ways to do it, and usually like 2-3 people together, 1+1=3. Like if you find something like that, helps you guys scale even farther. I think that's the key takeaway: is invest in yourself, network heavy, and find like-minded people that are willing to give into that relationship where both can benefit. And if you get to that point, you can accomplish pretty much anything and build a solid real estate business.
100%.
I like it. All right, Gino, you got an announcement for the meetup coming up?
Oh yeah, so we're also, guys, if you're watching this and watch the recording, we got a meetup coming up October 26th. Have me and 2 other, since Chandler's over there in Peru hanging out, but 2 other wholesalers doing 7 figures in Georgia. So we're going to go over a Q&A format, ask as many questions as possible. Again, that's going to be at 7 p.m. on October 26th. The information is on my Instagram, but it will be at Dry County Brewery in Kennesaw. Now, with that being said, Max, how can everyone reach out to you? When they watch the recording or watching live, how can people reach out to you?
That's a good question. I mean, yes, we have social medias. We are in the process of building out our social media more. I guess Kong kind of got us hooked, so there will be a lot of content coming from our social media, free content. So pretty much like Gino's Instagram, it's Max, and then the underline VOLLMER, so Victor, V like Victor, OLLM like Mary, ER. That's my Instagram. I'll post some of the updates there, but I'm also happy to, talk to people if they want to join venture on some things, have more questions about the things we do. So they can also reach me at my phone number, which is 541-556-8929. So if anyone wants to, shoot me a text message or something like that, more than happy to jump on a call and see how I can add value and guide someone in the right direction.
Heck yeah. Well, Max, thanks for coming on. If you guys have questions for Max, just leave them down below here or reach out to his Instagram. And if you reach out to me, I'll make sure to send it to him. So thanks again, Max, for coming on. It was a good one, a lot of value there.